Hi everyone, this is Winnie here with yet another lesson. I call this lesson number 5 because we've been talking about similar things for the past 4 lessons. And if you're new to this channel, please, I welcome you to go back to the previous episodes so you can try to understand what we've been talking about. But I believe that it's always a good idea to start with a review of a previous lesson or lessons. And in this case, it's the fact that, yes, we've been talking about knowledge and we've explained, we've learned that knowledge is information and then understanding is revelation, right? That even if you have gained exposure to information, you understand it's a lot of it with the internet. Everyone is throwing information at you and sometimes you get overwhelmed. Which one is right? Which one is wrong? But anyway, that is the reason why we are here. We are here in this journey together. It's not the kind of journey that someone is going to dictate to you things that do this in order to live a life of purpose. But it's a journey that we are going to walk together. And please feel free to like these videos. Feel free to subscribe. That's whenever I upload, there is information that there is something that you can pick. And so it is really important that when you understand the information that is presented to you, you act upon it. And so that's why in today's lesson, I believe I will be saying wisdom is the master plan for action. That even it's like I have made many bad decisions. I would just wake up and do something without even thinking about it, right? And if you have listened to my stories, you realize that it is during these times, it's my experiences that have made me feel, I felt like I could share my experiences with someone such that, it will be many people that would be helped during this journey. It's always good when you learn from another person's mistake so that you don't do the same mistake when you're faced with a similar problem. Okay, and like mentioned, you realize that I don't want to use my own mind or my own head to say what I feel like. But yes, after sharing my experiences, we then look at references. I've looked at so many books. Most of them are motivational books. And unfortunately, motivational books did not help. It is results that were able to push me forward. And there is a book that I recommend, and it's called The Holy Bible. And I'm not saying, it's not a book only for Christians, right? It's a book full of instruction. And if you're wise, you can utilize that information in order to make good judgment. And it is these judgments that you make that will determine whether you live a life of purpose or a life of failure. And I have lived at both sides. You do not want to live a life of failure. I have lived in that aisle for so long that I am advising you that if you have a time, please, let's learn together so that you can avoid the mistakes that I made. So the first reference text will be taken from Proverbs. This is Proverbs 18, verse 2. And the book says that a fool does not delight in understanding, but only wants to show off his opinions. Oh, this is painful. I'm one of those people that don't want to, used not to listen. I felt like I knew everything. I felt like I knew what people were saying before they even said it. And I used to talk a lot until I discovered that I have made mistakes as a result of not listening. And when I'm telling you listening, it's not everyone that you have to listen to. Some people will just waste your time, and you don't want to waste time because as you age, we don't have enough time to live. And so as you're wasting time, just know that someone else is out there is living their purpose. And it is these people that, definitely you'll see results in a person's life that's making wise decisions. And so a wise person then becomes a person that makes wise decisions. Decisions likes to listen. And these people do not just talk about what they have understood, but then they act on it. You know, you will not see a wise person just saying everything. They will listen, but after they've understood, that is when they'll act. And then we have, on the other hand, people that listen to everything. If you listen to everything, you're going to get into trouble, because not everyone should speak into your life. And so we'll talk more about that. But let's go back to the person that does not listen. Because when we read Proverbs chapter, that was Proverbs, the first one was Proverbs 18:2, and then the second one is Proverbs 18:12. And it says, before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty, and before honor is humility. So this means that if you want to be called, if you want to move into a place of honor, you have to have humility first. But of course, just like the word says, that before destruction, a man's heart is proud. We don't want proud people, you know them. And like I said, I used to be one of those that felt like I knew everything and would not listen to advice. But over the years, I have realized that, you know what, I should have avoided these mistakes before, if I had asked for wisdom, right, for advice. And so when I talk about myself, I always want to refer to myself and the bad decisions that I've made in life. There is a time I made a loss of 40-something thousand, close to 50,000. I decided to take out, they call it a refinance, house refinance. And I was thinking to myself, oh, if I took out this money, I'm going to make money. And I took it out at a high rate. I think it was 7%. And I had been advised that when I did that and invested it somewhere, I would make much more money. But actually, I never made the money. And because of that, I made losses. And I'm still paying for the losses that I made that year. It's been over 5 years now, but I'm still, because of the bad decision, I'm still paying that. And as a result of that, my family is feeling the impact of that. So it's always a wise decision to ask for help before you make a decision. And so, yes, we are at the level of, yes, you now know what you have now understood, what has been told to you, or you've read information, whether from the Bible, the book that I recommend, or from somewhere else. And you've been exposed to this information and now you understand it. But then in order for you to see results, you have to act on it. Because even when you understand something and do not act on it, there are not going to be any results that you'll see. And so we are saying that we were talking about the fact that it is why wisdom is connected to wealth, you know. When you see a wise person, in most cases, they have attained understanding. They've attained that deeper level of understanding that will help them decide to act and then to see rewards after their actions. And I always, when I was watching these motivational speakers and reading all these books, I used to hear words like, if you fail, try again and again and again and again. But then failing and trying again and again and again is not going to help you. There's a saying that stupidity is when you do the same thing expecting different results. When I used to make mistakes because I had been listening to these motivational speakers, then I would make the same business mistakes, and until I realized that I needed to ask for help. And since then, I've been doing so. I ask for help from the Most High God. And I believe in the next lessons, that's when we are going to talk about ways, because I believe that you might have been asking questions about, but how do I ask for this help? By the way, help is available to you when you ask for it. There are so many ways in which you can get these revelations, and I believe that will be either in the next lesson or the one after. And so I encourage you to watch the lesson so that we can move together in this journey. But feel free to write any questions or any comments so that we can move forward with that. What would you love to learn about in the next lesson? Please write your comments in the drop down, and then I'll make sure to cover that in the live, because I intend to have that soon. Okay? So when I read the Bible, I discover that the wealthiest man in history was also the wisest man in history. And so I needed to understand how this man became wise. And so I went, and when I read the book of First Kings, that was chapter 3, verse 15 and 28. If you are in front of your Bible, I always say it's the New King James Version, unless I say otherwise. Please, let's read together so that we can try to understand what made Solomon stand out. Because one day as he was sleeping, the Lord appeared to him and told him that, you know what, because you have sacrificed to me and you have showed me that you love me, I'm here to bless you. Let me know, what do you want? And Solomon did not ask for selfish, he didn't ask for selfish. I'm thinking that if the Lord had appeared to me and asked me, that was before I was exposed to understanding. And maybe I would have said that, oh, you know what, I need a lot of money. And I believe that many of you would do the same. But for some reason, Solomon asked for wisdom. And whatever you ask for in most cases, you receive, unless it's not according to God's will, but it's according to God's will for you to be blessed. Because everyone that asks for receives. And whenever you sow good, or whatever you sow comes back to you. And that is another concept that we'll talk more about. And so that is the law. Even if you don't believe in the Bible, that is the law of the universe. But in the Bible, we have that what you reap whatever you sow. Okay? So yes, Solomon had done a lot in the kingdom. And so he was considered a person that he was blessed. And it's like, okay, God was thinking about the fact that this man had done a lot for him and was figuring out a way to bless. And so that is why he appeared to him in a dream. And when Solomon asked for wisdom, he didn't ask for wisdom so he could show off this wisdom to his enemies. No, he asked for wisdom so he could help out God's people, the people that he was leading. When you go to pray, when you go to ask God for help, what is in your mind? Are you asking for selfish stuff, your own? But Solomon, when God saw that this man was selfless, this was a selfless prayer, the Lord, grant me wisdom so I can lead your people. And that was he granted. And so when we read verse 16, we see there were two women who were harlots. And they came to the king and stood before him. And one woman said, "Oh, my lord, this woman and I dwell in the same house, and I gave birth while she was in the house." Verse 17. And one woman said, "Oh, my lord, this woman and I dwell in the same house, and I gave birth while she was in the house." And 18. Then it happened the third day, after I had given birth, that this woman also gave birth, and we were together. No one was with us in the house except the two of us in the house. Verse 19. And this woman's son died in the night because she lay on him. Verse 20. So she arose in the middle of the night and took my son from my side, while my maidservant slept, and laid him in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. Wow. And when I arose, the next verse 21, and when I arose in the morning to nurse my son, there he was, dead. But when I had examined him in the morning, indeed, he was not my son whom I had born. Then the other woman said, "No, but the living one is my son, and the dead one is your son." And the first woman said, "No, but the dead one is your son, and the living is my son." Thus they spoke before the king. And the king said, that was verse 23. The one says, "This is my son who lives, and your son is dead, is the dead one." And the other says, "No, but your son is the dead one, and my son is the living one." So when Solomon had gotten wisdom, he didn't just go back and sit on what he had, what he had received. Instead, remember, I'm now reminding you about what happened the day that Solomon received wisdom. That morning, what happened? I'm going back to the fact that when Solomon knew wisdom, he had received wisdom from above. He just didn't sleep back. He went and thanked the one who had given him that wisdom. He sacrificed and thanked him. Many times we receive blessings from God, or even our friends or family. They do things for us, but we do not appreciate. I'm just reminded to tell you this, that whenever God blesses you, whatever blessing, because wisdom is a blessing. With wisdom, you can make wealth. Wealth is not a curse word. I used to think it was until I discovered that you actually need money in order to spread God's word. And whenever I read, every instruction, every blessing of the Lord is related to you having wealth. There is no curse unless you disobey. That is when you're cursed. But if you are a child of God that is obedient, the end result is blessings upon you and 1,000 generations. And so that is the confidence that we know that when we ask for something according to his will, will be granted unto us, especially when we don't ask with selfish ambition. So here was Solomon. He had asked for wisdom, because whenever you ask for wisdom, there will be an opportunity for you to exercise this. And so that was the opportunity that had been granted to Solomon. He had just thanked God for the wisdom, for the spirit of wisdom. And now as he was seated, in fact, it wasn't like he was seated. The next verse after he thanked God for the wisdom, then there were two women. And each one of them had the same issue. They were all saying that one had stolen the other one's son. I don't know how many of us would be able to come up with this kind of wisdom. Like Solomon, when I look at this kind of wisdom, and I know that this kind of wisdom is from above, because if you asked me before I gained exposure before I read this text, I would be confused. If this woman says that the boy that's alive is theirs, and this one's is dead, and everyone is saying the same, how was I going to tell? But because of wisdom, Solomon said no. Verse 24. Then King Solomon said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, "Divide the living child into two, and give half to one and half to the other." 26. Then the woman whose son was living spoke to the king, for she yearned with compassion for her son, and she said, "Oh, my lord, give her the living child, and by no means kill him." But the other said, "Let him be neither mine nor yours, but divide him." So the king answered and said, "Give the child to the first woman. Give this living child to the first woman, and by all means do not kill him. She is the mother." And all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had rendered, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice. Like I said, great leaders are wise people. When people understand that you're a wise person, they will always want to listen to your advice. That is how you become honorable. You don't have to scream at people if you're a leader. You don't have to bribe them. You just have to ask for wisdom. My friend, I want to thank you for listening to wisdom, to these words of wisdom. And as we walk together, I want to encourage you once again to subscribe, so that anytime I have to upload a video, you're the first one to get notified. And until then, I wish you all the best. It's Winnie Wamlanga here again. Have a blessed day or evening, wherever you are. Have a blessed one. Thank you.